Welcome to Aidentiti Toks. Aidentiti Toks will offer an accessible, comedic, satiric way to redefine, expose, and question topics of cultural identity. In particular, the lived experience of intersectional bodies. My name is Romi Cruañas. I'm studying an MA in dramaturgy and playwriting. In this episode, we will talk with Marcello Fidelis and we'll talk about culture, the perceptions of exotic, the hierarchy of food, the hierarchy of music. Today, connecting with others in a deep, meaningful way outside of immediate circles is harder than it used to be, making it important to talk openly about our identities and ways of perceiving and engaging with society. Special thanks for the Equality, Diversity and Inclusion Project Fund and Ewa Galway for sponsoring Aidentiti Toks. Hello and welcome everybody. Thanks for joining us at Aidentiti Toks. This is our first encounter today. I'm going to introduce briefly what is Aidentiti Toks. We are going to focus on discussing, questioning and deepening notions that make out the plethora of our diverse identities with an informal and comedic approach. Today, as our guest joining us is Marcello Fidelis. He's a man of many talents from the state of Paraíba in northeast of Brazil. Thanks for joining us, Marcelo. He's a comedian, actor, performer, singer, and writer. He helped run Tandem Comedy and created with Pedro Guerra Ribeiro and Jesters the comedy night Comedians Without Borders, which had as main objective to bring more diversity to the Dublin comedy scene. Marcelo performed at the Free Dublin Fringe Festival of 2019, as well as being part of New Voices of Ireland in 2019 and Laughter Lunch. He closed True Stories Told Live Lisbon by Lisbon Digital Nomads, where he made people laugh and cry with his performance. You tell us more about that later. He also had featured slot at the Circle Session, where he performed his poetry and spoken word. He sang in many locations around Ireland, including 2019 Electro Picnic, and he was part of a few commercials. He's currently studying film and creative media at DBS, and he's very nervous about the future.
Always.
Very good. Welcome, Marcelo. Thank you. Imagine there's a lot of people around clapping. Yeah.
Well, thank you for having me, Romi. It's always a pleasure to be able to have a nice conversation with you about anything.
Oh, that's great. Thank you. Thanks for lying.
It's not a lie.
we have three kind of general topics that we selected with Aidentiti Toks, and we propose to you to talk to us about culture. And with culture, we divide it in the hierarchy of food, hierarchy of music, and perceptions of exotic. So these are the kind of springboard themes where we're going to start, but from here we can go anywhere we want. And what is the first thing that caught your eye when I sent you the information about the talk and you said, I have something to say about this?
Oh, it was definitely about the exotic, you know, because being especially being a foreigner here, especially being a foreigner with my looks in here, it's something that you get quite familiar with the word exotic, isn't it? It's quite an experience to live through all that. I remember not the first time, but the one that really struck to me. It was the first time that I went to a head wrap workshop because I wanted to get those beautiful head wraps and everything because I like to protect my hair from people touching it. And after I left it, I felt it felt so nice. I gathered so much more knowledge and about a lot of things that I never thought about studying in life. And one of the first things that happening was me going walking around Temple Bar. I was with a few friends, and this old white guy grabs me by the hip, brings me closer, and say, "Oh, can I have a picture with you?" And I ask, "Why?" And he said, "Well, because you look exotic."
Oh.
I mean,
Did you?
of course not. I told him to fuck off and I left.
Oh,
Okay. And was this the first time or the latest time or just one of too many times?
One of the too many and various times. Like it's I won't lie, it's better when it's words than it when it's actions. It feels a little bit, it's a little bit safer. It doesn't affect as much. But whenever there's any kind of movement or anything involved like that, it's just like no, 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 no,
Still
no.
like grabbing and being singled
Yeah,
out. I
yeah,
guess
yeah.
woman, I had a lot of that going on, so I can really sympathize with the feeling. And there is that kind of fear as well when someone, like you get into a fight or flight mode or something, like, are you gonna hurt me as well? And then
Mm-hmm.
this thing, you're
Yeah.
so exotic. I'm a person.
Mm,
Hello.
yeah, but that's exotic, and it's the use of the word as well. Like there are so many synonyms for the word exotic, but none of them struck as a good thing whenever you listen like that. Like it's okay to read something and you see the meaning and everything, but whenever someone says to you out of the blue, "Oh, you're exotic," or "Oh, you're rare," "You're strange," "You're foreigner," it's it doesn't it's not really nice, you know. It's
Mm.
but what can I do? What can I do?
It's
The
alienating,
perks of
no?
it is
Mm.
it is.
It's a thing that has been said to me too, actually recently and not so recently as well. So I really feel this kind of I'm gonna be kind of like devil's advocate from the other side. I feel like it's almost seen as a compliment, as in like I wish I was as exotic as you. What's your response to
You see, that's exactly what I think.
that?
And that's exactly what I try to tell myself. But even though when I tell myself that, there's still a part of me that feels that it shouldn't be like that. There are so many different words that you can use to compliment someone. But oh, that's a rather unique hair, isn't it? I mean, yes, I know. And I know that you're trying to be polite or something, but come on. You could say it's pretty. It doesn't hurt.
Mm.
You would say that if it didn't look like this, you know? Or oh, you're so exotic, so unique. Like, come on, come on. You have more words than that in your vocabulary.
Yes. And it is quite othering, as in like if you are this, you are not, because you're not like anybody else.
Exactly. They put you in a spot that if you try to deny it, you are also denying who you are because it's a part of you. And I do know that it is quite a unique look and everything
Mm.
because it would be otherwise it would be very easily to recognize around town where it isn't. But still, I have a few occasions where I've entered in places here that people just kind of stopped and it feels so uncomfortable, so uncomfortable, especially when you're just in those small villages in the more to the countryside because it's it 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 feels like when you're a kid and you're in a play and you have something to say, but then you forgot and you're still there in the front of the stage without knowing what to say, and everybody has their eyes on you, just expecting you to do something because they feel like you should do something because they feel like they should be entertained by you. But no, you're just like, and you just leave because you're not comfortable enough to be
You
there.
you do become an entertainer and you are a comedian and you're so do you think these things somehow are connected, or as in like pay the ticket if you want me to be funny, or
No, but I did start charging for the pictures after a while. Then they stopped asking because they don't want to pay for the pictures.
might as well,
Yeah.
no? And tell me how you entered in Ireland, in the comedy world and performance world, and how do you find that maybe your exotic look helps or doesn't? And tell me more about this.
Okay, so I started going to comedy shows at the end of 2017. I had just moved here. I At the time I had just started drinking, and I heard that comedy clubs were great places to go drinking. Also, there was the crippling depression that didn't allow me to stay at home during the night, so I had to go out and do something. So, hence the comedy shows. And after a while, just kind of going to the many different locations that you have here in Dublin for the comedy scene, I ended up making friends with a few groups, and I just kept going and kept going. And after a while, one of the guys who ran Camden Comedy at the time, Rory McSherry, he looked at me or like, Marcello, why don't you go and perform? And I thought, oh no, I think that's too much for me. I rather start with poetry because people at least clap at the end because they're polite. There's no hecklers. Or so I thought. I've been heckled during a poetry night. But yeah, that's how I started in comedy. After that, I just kind of gathered up all the confidence that I had and I went for it. But going back to your question about the looks and everything related to it, I didn't have this when I started. I was the very basic and social patterns that everything, like a little suit, short hair, trimmed beard, all those kind of things that at the time, not only me, but not only society, but my family as well told me, oh, you should look like that, otherwise you'll be too singled out and people will look at you, people will be talking about you. And after a while, I thought to myself, you know what, no, like I'm my own person, I should do whatever I feel like doing it. And that's when I decided to start growing the hair, because I always was curious about it. But every time that I thought about growing it or mention it, someone would be like, "No, Marcel, it won't work out. Like you'll be terrible. You look ugly and everything." Even my first girlfriend told me that, Marcelo, it won't work out. Keep your hair short. And then I had a haircut, and then she started to slag me because of my haircut at the time. So there's no pleasing to some people.
Totally. Some partners are never happy.
No, no.
I'm one
But then they break up with you and they become happy.
yeah. And you were happier,
Yeah.
your hair was happier. So now you think this is, it's almost like what I hear, and we didn't really speak about this before. Like we've known each other before, but we didn't really talk about your
Yeah,
grown
no,
grown hair kind of scenario. Yeah.
no. Whenever. It's I think that's one of the things in me that I learned how to like, learn how to love. Because when I was younger, I was full of prejudice because of the way there was reason. Like whenever you're, especially in Latin America, television is always portrayed black people as either evildoers or known like good people to do nothing, all those kind of things. And for a long time, especially because I was raised in a kind of middle class kind of neighborhood, because I had that privilege, because my parents really went out of their way to do their things. And very very unique. And at the same time, I wanted to blend in as much as possible, because otherwise it would just feel like I would be calling too much attention to myself. And it took me a long time to get rid of those small prejudices and learn how to really enjoy this me by who I am. And the hair is just one of the many things in me that with time I stopped hating it and started loving it. And that's why I'm letting it grow.
Oh, it's so exotic.
So exotic. Exactly. Like the thing I think about it, it's not hair, okay? It's a part of your body, and you wouldn't want other people touching other parts of your body without consentment, because that's what harassment is.
Exactly.
And I thought that this is the best way that I used to put at the time when there was no COVID and I used to go out, because a lot of people would try to touch my hair, and there wasn't really a distinction between men and women. But it was easier to explain to women because I would just say what I just told you. Like, you would want another person touching you without consent, right?
Mhm.
And they'll be like, oh, yeah, I see that. I'm sorry. But with men, it's just like, I don't understand that. I'm like, come on. No, get
And
out of here.
yeah, and yeah, men have a tendency to touch people without their consent in general, now generalizing terms. And I feel like women do too, and in a way, though, even between women, like,
It is something to definitely be observed because it does happen a lot.
we're talking about, let's say, our identity and our perception, but doing this exercise of kind of like trying to understand where the other person comes from, right? And are they trying to
Hmm.
connect? Are they trying to get to know you, understand you, or are they just treating you like a zoo animal? Do you know? Because that's sort of, I mean,
That's a very good question. I do think that it's in the middle of all of those options because there are some people that just do just for the crack and just because it's fun, but there are people that are really interested and want to learn more about it and talk about it.
hmm.
So it's random like everything else in life.
Yeah,
Extremely, we're not really sure, and we can't be certain of the things until they happen. Otherwise, it's just hypothetical things that we put on our own minds.
absolutely. There is a thing you said that struck me because it's something I say too, which is I was full of prejudice. And
Mm.
probably because you have the awareness of having been brought up with a lot of strong prejudice, today you can still say, I'm still
Yeah,
trying to get rid of some of it, but you are aware of having some too. And I feel this is something very relevant because sometimes when you hold people accountable for their prejudice, or you saying that's a prejudiced comment, remark, or things to say to me, they would be offended. As in, like, now you offended me because you call me prejudiced.
I think that we all have our own prejudice, even if we're not really aware of them. And I'm pretty sure that I still have loads of them. And every time that I see them, I try to work out a little bit more because I want to become that a better person, and that's what I'm trying to get at. But especially when related to my own things, I even wrote one of the poems that I have, spoken word text that I have. It's about that, and I can read afterwards if you feel like it. Outside of the outside of this,
Even within this, if you want to read a little bit.
whatever you feel like it. But it's it's hard to realize those things, and it's even hard because when you do, depending on what the prejudice is at, right? In my case, was really connected to color and physical uh, features like my nose or my hair or anything like that. And when I really realized that it was not a, I won't say that it was 100% a happy turnout point for me because I also hated myself a lot because of thinking those things,
Absolutely.
because it's not something that I believe is not something that we should live with. But it is what it is. It is how society is. It is how we are raised. And every little thing that form our characters are the things that we gather up when we're growing up. And sometimes they're not the best.
Hmm. And sometimes like
And
in
it's
our face, very like out there, and sometimes they're subconscious as well. And some, I think, if someone teaches you women are for you to use and throw away, then you can be like, maybe not. But if nobody teaches you out loud, but it's how it is happening, you don't even realize because it's underneath kind of the
exactly. It is taught and we absorb the things that people teach us as we're growing. And the older we get, it's harder to try to break those train of thoughts that we always had.
Hmm.
But it's not something impossible. It's something that's very doable, and I think that's what we all should try to work to it.
Who are you to tell me what we all should do? No.
You asked me. That's true. That's true. That's true. You didn't. But still. Well, at least in my case, I try to do that. If you want to do it or not, it's up to you, listener.
Perfect. I wonder, like, when it comes to hierarchy, then this is another thing that we talked about within culture. I'm actually wondering right now, who would be listening to us with this hair and with these accents? And are we trying to speak to the converted, preach to the choir, or are we hoping that maybe people that are, I don't know.
No, I think that we're not really trying to focus on any kind of niche clubs here. Otherwise, we would be really preaching to the choirs in specific certain points of the things that we speak. We're just speaking broadly and openly about that. If people want to hear it, they can hear it. If they want to keep listening after they started, they're free to do so. It doesn't really matter who it's going to. It's all a sense of how they feel about what they listen to. And yeah.
So do you think that by us speaking about for example, the alienation that we feel when someone talks about our hair or our exotic, whatever,
features,
we are alienating back, and then it becomes like a ping pong sort of scenario, table tennis. You alienate me, I alienate you.
I don't think that, because that's what a conversation is. People talk about things. People get to certain points. Sometimes they don't. That's how conversations are, and that's what we have in here. If people want to take meanings upon the things that they hear, it's not up to us, but that's them with themselves. But in this case here with you and me, we're just debating about culture and how those things inherently build up to end up how they are.
Yeah, I do believe in the power, almost like a revolutionary power of conversation. And I feel like sometimes culturally, we have very different opinions on what a conversation looks like.
That's true. That's true. For example, especially in my family, depending on how you talk to certain people, you're not having a conversation, you're just being disrespectful. Because as coming back to the hierarchy power that you just mentioned, if you talk to an older person in a way that you would talk to a friend or someone else, they might get offended because you're not treating them as they should be treated because they're elder and they know more than you. Absolutely. And from where I came from, that's how it is. That's how it usually is. I don't really treat my grandparents or any other person older than me, especially in my family, like that. Not anymore, because I don't think that's how a conversation should be. And it's sometimes words can seem disrespectful to people, even if they aren't. But I can't be always policing the way I speak, especially if it is how I would speak to anyone else around people if they think that's disrespectful. Otherwise, I would be mutating myself to be able to make them happy. And where does that leave me? It should be equal, not a unbalanced situation. But we all know that the world doesn't work like that. The world is full of those imbalances and everything else. And no matter where you are, you need to try to adapt yourself at the same time. But it doesn't also mean that you need to stop being yourself to do those things. Sometimes police the words that you use a little bit, but still, I hope there's a way that otherwise it just seems all too pointless for me.
I guess, yeah, hope is all we have. We have to hope there is a way. I find that like being yourself, it's something I always struggle with, because I'm like, which one? What part of myself? As in, like, all of that I am or do, and you can sympathize with that, doing many things yourself. Is like it's hard to fit in,
It
like
is.
even a very simple question at a party, just to start with, what do you do? Oh,
I dread about life.
usually I just like rock and shake in a corner at parties until everybody.
Exactly. Trying to keep away from conversations because that will induce your anxiety, and then your anxiety will induce your insecurities, and then the insecurities will make you stay awake for 3-4 nights a week thinking about all the things that you said and didn't say it, and then the crippling depression just appears, and then you have nice nights of sleep, and then everything starts again the next week. It's just how it goes.
So it's a circle.
It's a circle. It's always a circle. It's never-ending circles of disparity and a lot of things that doesn't really work out. But at the end, you think that it works out because you feel a little bit better about those things. But then it just keeps going and over and over and over again. That's life for me.
I can
Make it clear for me.
yeah, quite similar too. I at least
Yeah.
like let's talk about the difference as well of genders, no? Because in a way, women are almost more allowed to be on a cyclical mood, no? So if every now and then you're down, you have the proof. Look at my blood. It's okay if I'm down today. But what about you? You know, like these cycles, maybe.
My cycles aren't exactly monthly, but they come as go. It all depends of how my head is treating me. But it's been a while that kind of just allowed myself to feel them, because for a long time as well I felt like I shouldn't, because it's also the way of we're culturally raised as well, especially men, because men are not supposed to have emotions, men are not supposed to cry, men are not supposed to show anything that they feel inside unless they're rock. And no. Like, we're all humans, we all have feelings. I mean, I think most of us have feelings. I've known some people that definitely don't, but it's just, I don't know, we don't really have a reason or a paper that allow us to be those things. And if you do, or if you show those things, you're considered weak. But at the same time, if you watch any other woman in a position of power, whenever she says or do anything, people start complaining about her because, oh, she's a woman, she has too much feelings. She's not allowed to do those things. The biggest example we have in my country, Brazil, was Dilma a few years back, because she couldn't do anything that she would be labeled either as an idiot or as to having much feelings or not knowing enough. And people would just find ways to demeanor everyone else if they're against their beliefs or anything. It's just
And you think it's somehow like all part of the same jigsaw puzzle, almost like we're talking about hair and exoticism and culture and gender and the cycles and it's all part of. Are we like kind of?
It all narrows down to being different, doesn't it?
But different from who? Aren't we all different?
Exactly. We're all different. But if you're different from what the society think is the right thing, then you're oh, you're too edgy. Oh, you're too different. Oh, you're too, I don't know, words. It's, for example, I have an example of something that I studied last week. Around the start of last decade, the 2010s, something like that, Kickstarters and crowdfunding wasn't something very, very popular. And there was this case with this singer, Amanda Palmer, from the US, where she crowdfunded her disc after the old one that she did that sold 25,000 copies wasn't enough for the label. So she crowdfunded and she got more than $1 million with the same amount of people that would have bought the disc from the label. And a lot of media started reporting things like, is she allowed to do that? Like, is she not allowed to ask money from the fans or something like that? And it stands the same question, like, why can't she do that, but the label can? They're doing the same thing. They're using this, they're not even using the same approach because she asked for the fans. The fans have the whole right of doing that or not. The label doesn't have that right because they just pull it to sale. And even though they don't use all the money to pay the artist, because they do get a huge percentage on top of it. So why can they do that, but the artist can't? Because it's not the normal. It's not the things that are usually reported. It's not how it's usually done. And it's that this usual part that really make us different, that open up the book for people to start talking about us and whatever.
Absolutely. I feel like it's almost as the middleman, the proverbial, she, in this case, she cut the middleman, the label, but it's almost like this middleman stereotype, archetype is what we all need to look up to. We all need to be like this ideal middleman. And so I'm a woman, I'm already out, and then middleman wouldn't have that hair, so you're out, and wouldn't be that size or that color or that wouldn't move like this, like I speak and move, and then sometimes I catch myself and I'm like, oh, this is me, but then if I'm talking to someone and I'm doing this, people would be not all people obviously, but a lot of people get really threatened by even just the fact that I embody the way I speak. I'm not a middleman.
You're not a middleman, Romi.
But then I guess the question is, we're going into masculinity and how it is being redefined in recently, or it's been trying to be redefined for a while. And I think it's interesting, when it comes to, for example, the Black man and white woman scenario. Like now, I've been told I'm not white recently as well. I found that out. I happen to be the whitest one of my family, but then because I am Latina, and so I'm not white, I'm non-white, and it's fine. I'm actually happy about that. But in this case, I'm really confused, I guess. What is the relationship between these two different but present oppressions, when it comes to womanhood and Black men? And there is a lot of writing about it and essays.
There is. It is like the way I see it within the pattern is white man, white cis man. That's important. White woman, Black men, almost there, and then on the bottom there's Black women. But if you put, for example, a trans Black woman, it's even lower. Trans Black men as well. It's not a debate of just colorism anymore. It's not just about the color of our skins. It's
intersection.
In the past few years, it has become even more dampened by all the other things that define us by who we are. Because even though they're not new concepts, it's still a new thing that society is still accepting it, even though it's been here since forever. You did remind me of the poem that I told you a while ago in the same call. And I can read it if you feel like it would add something to do.
Why not? We're like halfway through our chat. Okay. If you have handy, we can do that, and then maybe pick it up again to finish up and see if you have anything to say about food and music, because we talked a lot about exotic, and maybe within the hierarchies between that, there is also something.
I'm gonna go for it then, if you don't mind.
I'm gonna put myself in mute just in case I move or do some sound that disrupts it. Go for
Okay, thank you. So this one is called "You're Not Black, You're Brown at Most." You see, this is funny because what I think these white people mean with that is that also the ones who say, "I'm not racist, but you're not black, you're brown at most." Usually the same people who I shine bright when they say the N word, and then they say, "Oh, you shouldn't be offended, because you're not black, you're brown at most." These people feel entitled to diminish my own ethnicity because I'm not black enough to their standards. Because I'm not black, I'm brown at most. Well, apparently that doesn't apply to every single thing in life, because I was black enough when they thought it was impossible to see me driving a good car. I was black enough when they decided to stop me at some random checks in airport securities and other stuffs in Brazil. I was black enough when they sent a security guard to follow me inside a story every single time that I would just be looking at stuff. I was black enough when they thought that I was stealing a purse when I was actually holding for my own girlfriend inside a shopping mall. But no, you're not conventionally black. You're not loud. You're not surrounded by other black people. You don't dress like one. You don't even talk like one. In class, Stephen Willis gave me the basics for this verse that goes like this. Well, I'm sorry if I say sing instead of sang. I'm sorry if I pronounce my R's in sentences and I say, please, Father, don't beat me no more, instead of, please, Father, don't beat me no more. I'm sorry if my ERs don't become an A and I don't say what y'all motherfuckers mean that by I'm not black, I'm brown at most. I'm sorry if I don't use a double negative as a positive, so ain't far for y'all that a nigga ain't no slagging around because y'all feel like I'm not black enough. Because no, you're not black. You're brown at most. And actually, I'm not sorry. I'm mad. But worst thing is, I'm not as mad as y'all as I am at myself. And I'm mad at myself because when young, I would look at my own reflection and think, why can't I be white? I'm mad because I would cross the street whenever I saw a brother coming towards me. I'm mad because for a long, long time, I would look myself and see only hate. Hate towards my broken nose, hate towards my dark eyes, my thick hair. And I'm mad because I've raised to think that black is bad and white is good. My dad's black, my sister's black, my late grandma is black. And it took me a long time to be able to suppress this inner prejudice. Prejudice the most of us have, even though we don't notice. And I'm not letting anyone tell me that I'm not black, I'm brown at most. I'll be crossing no street no more. And that is, you're not black, you're brown at most, by myself, around 2018, I think. Not really sure. Man.
it. Thanks. Yes. Yes. Loads of this. Yeah.
The little.
Yes.
Yeah.
And I mean, looking back at your bio and how much you were doing, and then you started to do more around 2019, a lot happens, and then boom, lockdown, COVID.
COVID. Yay.
And so we don't get much of this
We
anywhere,
don't get much of nothing lately.
right? So how hard it is, how much
It
harder.
is. It is hard, but it could be worse. Like, I do understand there are many people, especially within our conditions and especially within our region of the world, are not used to being locked up inside.
Mhm.
But there are many worse places that we could be at. There are many other situations that are even worse than ours. And I don't want to be one of those guys like, oh, but some people are suffering more in other places.
Absolutely not.
But we do need to evaluate how privileged we are in relation to a few things. I'm not talking about the mental state of people that are locked inside and can't deal with that because they need, but it's not always the case, because there are many, many people that are just do whatever because for the sake of it. And it's hard. It's hard.
It is.
But being honest, it took since COVID started and I wasn't really able to go out and do many of those things that I did because heck, depression didn't wanted me to be at home. I had a few ups and downs, but I kind of learned how to deal with them in other ways. It's not like there isn't only way of dealing with things. There's always a plethora of options that you can choose and find and discover. Yeah, and I believe that helps. In my case, I'm not gonna lie, I became addicted to a TV show for like 5 months, but still, it small things helps.
Yeah, yeah. You live in another world for a while.
You
Sometimes,
live in another world for a while. Yeah.
yeah. I totally get it. I've done that too. And I get the kind of, I actually not just get it, but I love the way you openly speak about the depressive states or depression and anxiety. And I found this in a few other people, a few other men within the arts as well. I guess there is this ability to just be honest about this, because this is part of your truth, and it can be in a way part of your identity when you overcome it, or when you're trying to overcome it, or when you're with it.
I believe it's always a part of your identity, even if you can't overcome it, because it is you. And something that someone told me a long ago, uh, she was she was really worried about going to a psychologist, because she would tell me, Marcello, what if I find out that these things that I think it's me, you know, it's a part of me that I can't really deal with, because it's me, it's who I am, it's what I think it's. And that stuck to me, because yeah, it's scary, but at the same time it's you, and you shouldn't really be trying to fight with against yourself. You should be trying to understand it and be able to talk about it. Once again, people, I'm talking about myself. Do not take that as a rule, me to myself. But yeah, that really stuck to me for a long time. And even after that, it took me a long time to be able to really go out and seek out the help that I needed. But nowadays, it's I see that's a little bit easier to talk about it, and hopefully one day it will be just like talking to about anything else,
Little by little, we can only try.
little by little. Exactly.
I guess being originally from Argentina, we have very different relation to psychotherapy. There is a side of Buenos Aires that is called Palermo Freud, because there is a lot of therapists there. But in general, it's like therapy, it's, if you don't go to therapy, you're weird, you know. As in, like, we start with the idea that everybody needs to go in some shape or form. Your parents, willingly or unwillingly, they messed up your head, and it's kind of like almost the opposite. And I feel like I've been in Ireland now 14 years, and in Ireland it's just starting now, it's very slow, and in Brazil it's kind of the same.
It's the same thing. Yeah, it's the same thing as around here. It's not something that has always been there. Like, I mean, it had always been there, but it was not an option that people were really willing to go afterwards. Otherwise, if you're going to, you'll be crazy, or you have something wrong with you. And that's not the case, because we're all crazy and we all have things wrong with us.
Exactly.
Not just because you go to it that you have those. No, everyone has those.
Totally agree with that. So you also sing?
Yes, I try to. I mean, it's more of a covert kind of thing. It's more for fun than anything else.
And as
I've tried.
Sorry.
I've tried reading some stuff, but they're just bad. So I'm gonna save the world from listening to them.
If only, you know, most people that there is, I think there is tastes for everything, you know, and
that's true.
That do make any type of art, music for sure, they may believe that what they've done is not great. Maybe we are in a culture that makes us think like, oh no, it's everything is amazing. What I do is amazing. But there's actually a lot of artists that are very, very hard to themselves. And then maybe someone else listens and they're like, wow, that's amazing. And what if, you know, like it connects again to the idea of what is exotic, etc. If you sing in Portuguese, if you sing a Brazilian song versus if you sing something in English, when you talk about covers, etc., you have a better reception because it's exotic. Or
See, there are more requests towards foreign music than from here when they find out where I'm from. Because I think that either or not there's that wonder, and there's kind of that it is interesting to listen to songs that are not from your first language. Like we from Latin America know that very well. Especially because there's a lot of Americanized songs over there. At least throughout my whole childhood, what we would do is get American songs and then translate them to the Portuguese versions of it, and just play within our own genres of music. Some of them are great, some of them are terrible, and some of them are better than the originals.
there you go.
But I think here, especially in Dublin, it's a very it has a lot of receptivity to diverse music. I've seen many different types of singers here from many different languages, and I don't know if it is because of the circles that I'm at, but it feels normal. It doesn't feel like it has that whole pressure, or what's the word, or necessity to play a song that is really known throughout people here. But there were cases where I've seen people sing in their own native languages that people like, sing something in English, sing Wonderwall, some shit like that. So it's once again we go back to the randomness of everything. It's all about the peoples who are within the places and how they react within the concepts of the strange or the exotic.
I do feel
What do you feel sometimes?
like if a musician has as a first language English, might get more opportunities all around the world, as you say, because you know you will go to Brazil or Argentina or Italy, and people will be like, yeah, that's great music, no matter that I don't understand what they say. But if someone that speaks or has lyrics in Portuguese or Spanish or Italian, you don't really get many of those outside of the countries that do speak the language. Become
that's true. Like it has changed more and more lately, but it's still the basic rules that it goes through it. Like if it especially in countries that are not really from the north of hemispheric, especially from the western side, if it's not English, people would still be a little bit like, I don't know, I don't feel like reading, even though they have to read for English movies because of the subtitles. But it sounds more natural, it sounds more familiar to them. It also goes back to the whole concept of the strange, of the exotic, of the things that we're not really sure if we like or not, because we've never had the chance to experience, and we are too afraid to experience them because we don't know how we will react. So
the familiar is safer.
The familiar is always safer.
What if it is? How do we?
I would be much happier if it wasn't, because then that would mean that more people would get to experience more stuff, and they would open their minds more to the concept of things that we don't know. There wouldn't be so much prejudice about things, because they would be able to experience those things and see that it's not because they're different that they're bad. They're different because that's how things are.
Absolutely.
And that's,
And this
once
brings,
again, I go back to, that's the hope that I have.
we can just hope
This
and
brings us
hope little by little, you know, to be molding a different future.
little by little.
But I think this leads well somehow in my brain to food, and how, for example, in Ireland, this doesn't happen as much with food, as in if you come with Brazilian food, you'll be like, oh, that sounds interesting. I think there is a willingness to try different things.
There,
Oh, actually, yeah.
there is a willingness, especially if you check around apps like Deliveroo or Just Food or Uber Eats. All the main restaurants there, all the ones that are top rated, none of them are from Irish cuisine. But especially in Dublin, you don't really see them as the top rated restaurants in those apps specifically. An Irish breakfast sure goes very well in the morning, especially after some drinking, but still it's not something that you really get to know a lot of. And I think that people are more acceptable to food because food won't really change their views on anything else, because it's just food. It tastes good. And as long as it doesn't have something weird in it, they are willing to try because it's food. It looks good, it smells good.
Well, I think I would argue that a lot of people are afraid to taste even food, and I think that maybe through food, you know, like maybe it's connected to another culture. So for example, if I eat Brazilian food and I like it, then I'm maybe more open to listen to Brazilian music, or then listen to a Brazilian person talk about their lives, because I don't know, it is part of culture still.
It
Or
is.
as
It
in,
is.
you know, like we could say high culture, some certain type of dance, certain type of theater, certain type of, you know, and then there is low culture. Comedy is not like theater, but it's still culture. So food is not
It
like,
is.
but it still comes from a place of history, and I don't know, it brings you to Ramos. I don't know. I'm hungry. Maybe that's what's happening.
I think we all are, for me. And I do understand what you're trying to say, and I do agree with it. Like it's definitely a way that if people are comfortable eating something from a place that they're not from, certainly that would be that susceptibility for them to being able to learn more about it. But at the same time, food doesn't talk back to you. Food doesn't go against your own beliefs of any other things. That's what what I meant to say when I talked about food not really trying to change your minds or anything else, because it's tasty, it's there, but at the same time won't give you a lecture of why 400 years of slavery was wrong, you know.
What is
So
it?
I mean, there are many dishes that are related to the whole African culture that would relate to why the food is why it is today. But at the same time, when people are eating, they're not thinking about that. They're just thinking, "Ooh, this tastes nice."
Yeah.
Some of them might go to, "Oh, well, that's interesting. I want to know how this was made and where it came from." But it's not the rule. It's the exception for the rule. And usually, this tastes nice. I like it. I'm gonna have more.
There is something with food and kind of like how it makes part. For example, I feel like for my culture, it's at the center of family life. It's at the center of friendship. It's at the center of parties. It's at the center, you know, like there's no food, there's no party. Like what kind of party is without food? There can be a lot of drink, but without food, you know, I felt like in Ireland, there was this switch all of a sudden, like we go to a barbecue and there'd be 400 cans of beer and one burger, and I'd be like, what is that?
And you need to share that burger.
And obviously 400 cans of beers is for 4 people.
Yeah, I mean, if you didn't brought yourself 100, you're on the wrong. But yeah, it is very cultural as well. It's all. It was something that I thought was very weird as well when I got here. Oh, let's go to a barbecue. We're gonna have some can. We're gonna have some food. The food's a bag of chips. There's 33 of us inside this home. There's no place to make meat. Like, no. It's but it is how it is, isn't it? I can't really say it. Oh, maybe one day they'll have the barbecues here like we do in Brazil, because otherwise it won't be the Irish culture. It will be the Brazilian culture taking over the Irish one, or being the mix of one. I mean, I don't think it's right to really take over like that. It should be a nice mix of both. Like, you can have the cans, but maybe add a little bit more food. Something else here to just
I
make
guess
pleasant to both sides.
if you add more people, like if there are a few people in the same party and not everybody's from, in this case, I'm the only one not from Ireland, so I feel different. But if there is me from my background, there is you and some people from Ireland, then there is this balance. I guess a lot of time, and I don't know if it happens to you too. You've been here for a bit shorter than I have, I guess. Well, a lot of time you find yourself where you are the only one in the room that is not Irish. How does that work in relation to being exotic and to food and to music or to anything? How does that work?
That would usually happen within the circles of friends that I already had. So it wouldn't feel so alien as it would for someone that just arrived here and doesn't really know anyone. But the recollections that I have from my first experiences going out and going to places that were only Irish people, it is a little bit lonely. It is a little bit weird, because wanting or not, you don't know what from your culture might be seen as disrespectful towards them. Because in Brazil, we're very touchy, we're very warm people. We like to hug, we like to kiss, and all those kind of things. Whereas here, it's not exactly like that. It takes some time for people to be able to get the whole trust to be able to do those things with yourself. Whereas in Brazil, the first time seeing someone like, how are you? How are those things? Kisses, hugs, and everything. You get to know the whole history of the person in like 5 minutes. And at start, it's a little bit weird. It's a little bit as if you're going to a place that you don't really know what the rules are. And you don't really want to do anything against those rules, that even though you don't know what those rules are, and you don't even know if they really exist, but you don't want to get it wrong and be outcast because of it. So it takes you a while to be able to see and start acting as you think that as you can, and just to.
But then you're putting on a persona. You're
putting on a persona. But that persona doesn't mean that it's not you at the same time. Maybe you start by little, then you start showing the rest on the way. But it's just like any relationship. Any kind of talk that you have, any friend, any love partner, any family member, any schoolmate, classmate, work buddy, whatever. It's how the interconnections are made and how a conversation starts. You start by little, and from those little you start to see what happens from there. Sometimes it works out, sometimes it won't. And what it is.
Absolutely.
You can't really force those things. I mean, we all know that some countries tried that a few centuries ago, and we all know how it ended up.
I guess actually, I've been recently thinking quite a bit of, for example, Argentina's history and how much immigration there was there. How many people from Poland, from obviously Spain, Italy, but even France and Germany, Switzerland, it was like you can have a house there. You can have land, you can, so then people would go, and then they will have this whole neighborhoods that would be kind of like in the shape of whatever they had back home and eating whatever there. But then through the centuries, because I guess the big migration started before 1800s, and then it happened again, there were waves, etc. But then now the food is amazing and delicious because it has all these impacts, there is
Mhm.
everything, and the people look gorgeous because now
No, you don't need to say you're joking. I know that.
well, I mean,
I know. We know. We know.
there is this melting pot scenario that is harder to make happen here, and I don't understand why sometimes.
I see. I understand what you're talking about. I also think that a lot, but I also think that it brings us back to the whole colonization and imperialism kind of thing.
They're not bad words. You can say them. You can say them out loud. Say them loud. Say them.
In imperialism, it's all about entitlement. We had these countries that for hundreds and hundreds of years felt entitled to go out to any piece of land that they were able to find in the world and say, "Ooh, this is nice. I want that. Does someone live here? Oh, too bad for them. We're gonna get it." And they did it anyway. And by that, many and many cultures got mixed and got to experience things from other different cultures that it would never happen here at the time because, oh, an immigrant coming here and trying to change things? No, never. How dare they? You see, and you can still see a lot of that happening nowadays because our politicians and politics that happens every single year. For example, we had at the start of the year, what, Brexit, that was voted back in 2016 because people were too afraid of the immigrants coming back to the UK and taking things as they should since always because the UK was always been there. We have in France this year laws being passed that people can't use the burks or because exactly face covering because what it's not from their culture. They've been colonizing countries for years and centuries, and even though the decolonization is over, they still do that with all the politics and the ways that they treat the other governments.
And I would add, and they do it with the culture. They do it.
They do it with culture as well.
Yeah, with the movies and music, and
It always narrows down to that. All the way that picture this, all those American movies that have a scene either in Mexico or Latin America or in the Middle East. When
Yeah.
they are in the US, yeah, when they are in the US, everything is brightful and full of colors, things shine, beautiful people are walking by, and then they cut to this other place with a yellow theater on top of it. Very saturated, huge contracts, and people just poor walking by and everything like that. They do that with everything. And it's all about power and how they feel. It's all propaganda. It doesn't really matter if it's for themselves but or for the others. They would always do that. It doesn't matter the country as well. It that's everywhere.
And then we believe it. Like we believe
it.
when we go to Mexico. I've been to Mexico and I was very disappointed of the lack of yellow.
Because it wasn't yellow?
No, it was.
Yeah, no, I know the feeling. Yeah. It's just the same color as any other place.
something wrong with my eyes?
Damn it. Yeah.
But what about when Ireland is portrayed by the same kind of like big blockbustery USian companies? There is a lot of time Irish people, not all of them, but a lot of Irish people eh, are really vocal about how badly Ireland is portrayed.
It is.
Do you notice it? Or like use, for example, P.S. I love you. I don't know, it comes to mind, or all this, and then you'll be like,
Oh yeah. I see it. I see it. So we have in Brazil the stray dog culture, that is the concept that however our culture is portrayed by no matter who, be the US, be Europeans or wherever country, as long as they are considered first world countries, it's right.
hmm.
So if the US thinks that Brazil is trash, Brazil is trash. If the EU thinks that Brazil is not good enough for these things, Brazil is not good enough for these things. That's the kind of stray dog culture that we have in our country, and it's something that it has becoming less and less powerful throughout the years, especially because the new generations are more open to the concept that, hey, US is not everything, Europe's not everything. There's more in the world than those two places. And I think that it's kind of a right step on getting to build the cultural identity that they always had but never really paid attention to. Because I believe that Brazil, not only Brazil, but the whole South America and that all the other countries that were colonized by those people, they have so much rich culture to show off.
Absolutely.
But sometimes they don't feel like it's good enough because it's not the pattern that is made by all the others.
So what we're saying, we're going back to the I was full of prejudice that you said earlier, that I second, I was too. And it's kind of like this, when we say, please don't be prejudiced towards me, we're actually saying, I understand, because I was prejudiced towards me. So I can see it in you because I used to have it. And it's kind of like, you are also prejudiced towards yourself in a way. Do they go hand in hand?
I think they go hand in hand. And I think that unless people start to realize that, those things will never go away.
Like, I think maybe it's the third or fourth how do you say, of the people that come to Ireland, Brazilians are up there.
Oh yeah, we are the biggest number outside of the EU community.
Very good. Okay, so there is a big number there. And I recently, actually yesterday, I heard in the radio something about the Brazilian type of virus, and I don't know, and I feel like, how do you feel how this fuels or can be fueling another layer of prejudice than for people from Brazil in Ireland?
I haven't seen much of that related to us because, in fairness, the variant from the UK arrived here first, and Brazilians, to get here, not only here in Ireland but in Europe in general, they need to pass through a lot of things, and most of them are not really happy to pay for those things, so they kind of stay away. Especially the new, like, 2 weeks lockdown in a hotel that you need to pay for yourself. I don't think a lot of Brazilians would do that. Like, but the euro is too expensive for us to do any kind of those things. So it doesn't affect us much.
I don't know, maybe being all smaller and being less people. But what about the Deliveroo drivers? A lot of them are from Brazil, or there is
Most of them are from Brazil. The whole thing with the Deliveroo drivers and the whole thing that happened at the end of last year and the start of this year as well. It's not COVID related. It's just that they got tired of never having their backs by the police here, by the Gardaí. Because we all know how the laws here in Ireland are, especially related to people younger than 18 years old. And there's also from what I heard, there's no racism law here as well. There's no xenophobic laws here as well. Something that it should really, it's a boulder. It's like it just gets bigger and bigger, and the conflicts that are not treated or approached by those who really should, the government in this case, people take it on their own hands. It should never be like that, but it happens. Just making clear, I do not endorse any kind of those things.
I don't endorse nothing.
No, me neither.
Very good. I guess when it comes to talking about, you know, younger people, I spent 13 years of my life in the northeast inner city, in Dublin, and I ended up even working in some of the schools and meeting some of these problematic young people with time. But at the beginning, I was terrified, and I was, you know, attacked in the streets in some shape or form. Menaced? No, how do you say? Like
Menacing. I know what you're trying to say. I might not have the word, but I do know the feeling because I have been attacked by those kids as well in the past.
okay, let's
Thrown eggs.
now I know them. Their names are now.
Yeah.
As in, like, how do we build? I think it's almost like this kind of puppet scenario, no, in which something that is stronger, it's actually benefiting from us being kind of like weary of the young kids, and then kids being weary of us, and the fight being at this level, while there is a bigger picture, you know, because I don't know, I obviously, you know what I mean.
I know what you mean. I know what you mean. But I would be lying if I said that I knew exactly what look at here specifically in the situation of Ireland, because I'm not really I'm not really a connoisseur of those how those things work here yet.
Of course.
But definitely there must be reasons why certain politics aren't put in places. Like there must be. Otherwise, why haven't they already?
And do you think if we could share amazing barbecues without alcohol, Brazilian style, and music and theater and art? I mean, Augusto Boal is one of the most important theater makers that we actually get to study when you study theater in Ireland, and he's from Brazil. You know, you don't get to study many people from other countries at all beside the UK in some shape or form. So do you think that if, I don't know, if there was a more inclusive on those scenarios from a school level, maybe, then these things could be addressed, and people could be like, you know, instead of thinking Brazil Deliveroo, they will think Brazil dance, music, food.
Yes, I think so. Because that's the best way of dealing with any kind of subject, right? Addressing it. If you allow people to understand and to see the other side of the coin, they'll get more familiarized. They'll get more understanding of it, and especially if it's such a warm and inviting culture as Brazilian culture is. So I think so. I think that there are many things that could be done to make all those relationships better.
We try.
Hope for. We try. We hope. We wait. Cultures are created by adding small bits of many different cultures together. That's how they all started. It wasn't a single person that appeared in a place and said, "Oh, so this is the culture of Brazil." No, like many indigenous people, native people that were there, and each with their own cultures were creating more and more knowledge. And then the Portuguese arrived, and then slavery arrived, and then all the immigration from Europe and Japan and US, and many other places arrive, and that was made the culture of those places what it is today. You can't there aren't many places where you can look and be able to see the culture that it was a few hundred years ago, because it's always mutating. And unless you live in a native group in the middle of the Amazon jungle that never seen a plane or other person of any other color before, I'm pretty certain that your culture was affected by many others that came before. And people shouldn't be afraid of it. It's part of it is. It's always changing.
Mm.
The world's always changing.
So I think this is all the time we have for today with our identity talk. It was lovely to see you, to have you, to chat with you, to learn from you, to share with you, and thank you.
Always a pleasure, and thank you so much as well. Adios. Bye.
Bye.